Welcome to the Painting Coach, and this week we are painting the golden boys of the Emperor himself, the super shiny Adeptus Custodes. I've sprayed the model with Retributor Armour spray, and the first thing we need to do is shade it all down. So the colour we're going to use is Reikland Fleshshade. Now use this over the entirety of the model, not just the gold armour, because we need to create a bit of a matte surface to help the paint bite onto some of those wider areas like on the cloak. When that Reikland Fleshshade is dry, we'll start to detail the model. So first up, we're going to do all the silver parts, and the colour we're going to use for this is Iron Hand Steel. So make sure you use this fairly sparingly and be careful where you apply it. And don't forget, if you're doing some of the other Custodes which have silver on the helmet, check the right hand side of the video where you can see how to do that. We'll shade all of that silver using Nuln Oil. Now this is a fairly straightforward step. You just want to make sure you don't put too much on so that it pools and then runs all over the model. When that's dry, the simple thing to do is to highlight using some chrome from Vallejo Model Air. What we're looking to do is just catch those most raised surfaces to give us a nice sharp highlight. Next up, we'll make a start on all the black parts of the model, and this includes all the weapon casings as well as some leather elements such as the scabbard on the knife on the back and also any of the ribbing that's exposed on the model. All of those black areas are really simply highlighted using some Mechanicus Standard Grey. Where you can, use the shape of the model to drag the edge of the brush to get a nice sharp highlight. Otherwise, just take your time and paint it in nice and easily. If you make any mistakes, you can just go back over it with Abaddon Black. We're going to start basing the leather next, and to do this we're going to use Khorne Red. Now I've changed models to the new Blade Champion, and this is because he's got more leather on him so I can demonstrate the technique more fully. We're also going to use the Khorne Red to base the plume of any models as well as the cloaks, because it's going to be a nice deep red to start from. When that's dry, it's really easy to shade them down using some Nuln Oil. Just take your time not to get it on anywhere else. We want that leather to be really dark, so if you need to, put another layer of Nuln Oil on. I haven't chosen to, but I am going to start highlighting using Wazdakka Red. Now we're looking for some really fine highlights along those sharpest areas as well as any folds. The final highlight is a nice desaturated orange called Squig Orange. We're going to use this fairly sparingly, just as a dot highlight along those sharpest edges and also any of the biggest creases. With the leather complete, let's start on the red cloak and the red plume. Now this is nice and easy to do, but we do want to build it up in stages. So first off, take some Mephiston Red and paint this over the majority of the cloak, leaving that Khorne Red in the deepest of recesses. Check the video if you're not sure how to do this, but just work it on gently. We're going to do the same again using Evil Sunz Scarlet, and this is where the red really starts to pop. Now we're going to cover slightly less of an area than we did with the Mephiston Red, and again we want to keep it thin and just build that up gradually so we get a nice transition. The first highlight is going to be with Wild Rider Red, and you can see where the light is catching the model. This is where we want to put it. Essentially, we're going to paint this fairly thinly at the top of all the biggest folds. And to really make the red pop, we're just going to take some Fire Dragon Bright and paint this inside that Wild Rider Red right at the end of all the fabric. The model's really starting to come together now, so let's have a look at getting all those gems done. Now the colour we're going to use for Corax White, and all we're going to do is paint all of the gems with this colour. We're also going to paint the eyes of the model if they're wearing a helmet, and as you can see on the Terminator, he's got some cord on there, so we're going to paint that with the white as well. For the next stage, we're going to use quite a bit of contrast paint. So firstly, for the gems, we're going to take Talassar Blue contrast paint. We're going to paint this over all that Corax White, and you get a really nice effect. For the eyes, we're simply going to take some Blood Angels Red, and then for all that cord, we're going to cover them with Apothecary White contrast paint. To sharpen up the gems as well as that white cord, we're just going to take some White Scar, and we're going to use this to dot the top right of the gems, and we're going to use it to pick up any raised edges on all that cord work. Nice and simple. The end really is in sight now, so let's start highlighting up that armour. The colour we're going to use is Liberator Gold, and we're going to use this fairly sparingly, and we're going to use it along those edges where we can use the shape of the model to drag the brush and actually get a really nice light highlight on there. This is going to start adding the shine to the model, so take your time, build it up really nicely, and in some areas you may need to use more than one coat. It is a really thin paint. Finally, take some Canoptek Alloy, and what we're looking to do with this is just edge highlights. So where we've got those sharp edges that we think light is going to bounce off, we're going to take the side of the brush and just use that to highlight them. Let's get on to the final part of the model, which is the axe head. Now the technique I show you here can be used on swords and the spears. It's really easy, really straightforward, but we are going to do it all at once. So pay attention, watch it through first time, and then maybe try it the second time. So the colours we're going to use are Stegadon Scale Green, Sotek Green, and Temple Guard Blue. The first thing to do is to paint Stegadon Scale Green across the model, leaving just a little bit of black in those recesses. While it's wet, we're going to add Sotek Green and just mix them together on the model till you get a nice smooth transition. And then finally we're going to do exactly the same thing with the Temple Guard Blue and the Sotek Green. Let that dry and then we'll come back to it. That last part might take a little bit of practice, but you can always start again. So we've got a fairly nice transition here. So what we need to do is firstly take some Baharroth Blue and use this to edge highlight all the way around the axe. Now all I'm doing is using the shape of the model to get a nice tight edge. Once that's finished, I'm still using Baharroth Blue and I'm going to start to draw out some little lightning bolts and energy crackles coming from the centre of the blade down towards the end. I'm going to have more towards the blade of the axe than I have in the middle. The final thing to do is take some white scar and just use this to dot where the energy crackles cross each other and also around those sharpest points of the axe to really show that it's white hot and can cut through anything. And there you have it, this Adeptus Custodes is done, ready to smite the foes of the Emperor. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a like, leave a comment and check out some of my other stuff. I'll see you next time.